Hello, friends. Welcome to my program, Colonel's Punch. Today, my topic is hot, simmering, and global. It's China checkmated, right? It's China checkmated. I faced the Chinese in Ladakh, in the same areas, Galwan Valley and Pangong Tso. I know the Chinese bit too well. Their deception, their brutality. But the world was stunned on 16 June 2020 when the Chinese, after negotiations, attacked the Indian troops. It was a cowardly attack. It's one thing the Indians gave them a bloody punch, a blow by blow, and the entire China mainland shook. Till now, the Chinese were brought up on Superman propaganda. That myth exploded. Well, the most hurt was the Indian Prime Minister. He had met President Xi Jinping 18 times. He had visited China 5 times. And the Prime Minister and the President Xi Jinping visited India twice. He was feeling that there was a trust between them. But then, as usual, the Chinese backstabbed him. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was people's man. He knew the nerve of the nation. He just flew into Ladakh and in one fire and fury speech, without naming China and President Xi Jinping, he blasted them. He said, the Expansionism is over. We have to now go towards progress. The moment he blurted this line, the world was set on fire. Because for several decades, China has been expanding its border. All of a sudden, people who have been harassed, kept hostage, enslaved, looked up to a new light, to a new India who had the guts to challenge the Chinese. President Jinping was speechless, and China was left faceless. The people of Tibet, whom he had enslaved, were on the roads. Just imagine, Tibetan, old ancient custom, simple people. Their monasteries were blasted, 600 of them. More than 100,000 people were killed, and the world did not murmur. Tibet was over 1 million square kilometer area. Well, why Tibet alone? Get to Senkang, the Ulghurs, Muslims, they have been kept in concentration camps. They call them reformative camps. Not one, two, in lakhs. And the Islamic community world over just did not speak a word. No. Even Xinjiang was over 1,000,000 square kilometers. No. Whether it is the Inner Mongolia, Manchuria, or Wuhan. All these places were slowly eaten away by China. And then the communists ruled them with a heavy hand. Leave alone the countries which were close, 21 nations, who had problems of their border with China. There was the South China Sea. There also China was muscling around. Then the 9-dash line, the Vietnamese, Philippines, fighting for their rights. Law of the sea. They were also in a hurry. Japanese were not left behind. They are fighting for their own island. Senkaku, Taiwan, just 120 kilometers away. But China has not been able to touch it. China knows that when Chiang Kai-shek, general, left, he left with a great army, and the shallow waters of Taiwan will not be easy to cross. Well, the world over, Hong Kong, Macau, China has been pulling them after promising them one state, but two systems. China has let loose on them also. Don't forget, the Chinese people, such hardworking, loving, nice, wherever they have gone and settled in the world, from Canada to India, they have just mingled peacefully. Now these people were also put under tanks in the Tiananmen Square protest. Young students who had just graduated were protesting for a better life. It was democracy they wanted. And thousands of them were just killed. Well, with all this, I think we must have a relook at the Chinese leadership. 1949 dawned, and Mao was the leader of the communists, yet taken a long march, 9,000 kilometers, and killed billions of people. Famine set in. He pushed General Chiang Kai-shek into Taiwan, and he ruled. He told the Chinese, stand up and fight. But he and his premier, Chou En-lai, were very clever people. They started expanding their territories silently, inch by inch, slice by slice, and they finally occupied these entire areas of Tibet and Xinjiang and Manchuria. Their eyes were just going for the other nation, which were on India, much more on India later. The next to come was Deng. And Deng was a man of vision. He saw that the industries grow, the economy grow, and he made China rich. All this was possible because the world was not wanting war anymore. They did not want death. They did not want destruction. They were, fed up of genocides. So they turned a blind eye. And Mao went headlong. He made full use of the Cold War between USA and USSR, as both were appeasing China. Then came the modern era, and we had President Xi Jinping. No, he wanted to do a lot of things. He just came in 212, and he thought he could lord over everyone. But then he was no Mao. He was no Deng. He was just a man who was dreaming. He thought that China will be the world's superpower, both economically and in the military sense. But he did not have the wherewithal. When Prime Minister Narendra Modi kicked China in Ladakh, the world knew the balloon has busted. The China pride, just burnt out. The reason was very simple. They had a weak army. The People's Liberation Army. It was very weak. The recruitment, the soldiers were more trained in and indoctrinated in communism than trained in war. The single child policy had made them very, very weak, and the parents had lavished them with everything. The training, and thereafter, recruitment and joining was just for 3 years. And when they left, it was like leaving college. They celebrated. They said, "Oh, by God, we are off this army circles." No, China could not flex its muscles anymore. Its fingers, those 8 fingers, are 10 fingers. You remember those 1 to 8 fingers? And the knuckle was badly damaged. With that, there was a commotion in the world. People started now thinking that the Belt and Road, initiative, which was to cover 70 nations and touch nearly 65% of world economy, was it just a mean for China to dominate the world with its economic and muscle power? Yes, it must be. Look at poor Pakistan. It first in 1963 gave away over 5,000 square kilometers of Indian land. Then, to be very friendly and appeasing to China, it allowed China to do the China-Pakistan economic corridor with the roads and rails and bridges and airfields, and one more place. That's correct. That's the port, Gwadar port. China has been dreaming for ages for a warm water port, and they've got it. But what has Pakistan got? Nothing. It has been, cut across, and its sovereignty has been lost. Its people, pride has gone. Their women have been married and they are learning Mandarin. Just imagine, China cannot. China is a big trap. When they made this Belt and Road initiative and this economic corridor, especially which is passing through Karakoram, Gilgit Baltistan, POK, these are all Indian land. And, UN has said that it's legally Indian territory, annexed or occupied by Pakistan. Now, with China also holding it. And then China, cleverly called about 40 nations and cut the ribbon for this economic corridor. It was hiding its main intention. It was actually asking India to come into the bout, into the boxing ring, and India finally came into the boxing ring. The Indian Army was not of 1962. The Indian Army did not lose the 1962 war. It was just the bungling of Prime Minister Pandit Nehru. He never understood strategy, sovereignty. He said, I don't need a police force. What I don't need an army, because I don't have any intention of occupying any land. I just required a police force. Now, if that is the vision of a leader, he doesn't know that there are many, foxes and jackals and wolves outside who will just grab your territory. So it was forgiving. The Indian Army, was the finest army. It fought the First World War. The Chinese never did that. It fought the Second World War. And it fought in all fronts, whether it was Europe, Africa, and then it had its day fighting the Chinese, fighting the Japanese in Burma. The biggest battle, or the fiercest battle in Asia, Battle of Arakan at Kangwa, was fought by 51 Indian infantry brigade. All the 3 battalions were Indian, and all the commanding officers were Indian. One of them was General Timaya, the other General S.P.P. Thorat, and the third, Sen. Now, all these people were highly decorated. They pushed the Chinese out of Burma, pushed the Japanese out of Burma, and, even our Indian Air Force, or the Air Force, they're flying over Hum, the great, Americans and the Air Force, British Air Force, British Indian Air Force, flew hundreds of sorties to help the Chinese. China had forgotten all that. China never fought the war. You know, in the final, when the American decided to join the war after the Pearl Harbor, that was the time when China loosened up. Otherwise, the Japanese had entered and captured Shanghai, Peking. Just imagine. Nanking, the rape of Nanking. You know, the Chinese were just scared of the Japanese. And here was Indians who just pushed them off. So when the generals were still serving and there were a lot of other officers and men who were still serving, told Nehru, especially General Thorat, his papers in 1959, 3 years before the 1962 war, he told them our army was ill-trained, ill-equipped, and then he gave out a plan how to defend and then fight. But Nehru and the Defense Minister Menon were simply not interested. They were just peaceful does, and somehow they thought China as the elder brother and bended backwards. The UN seat India refused so that China could be appeased and position given. India did not want to fight. President Kennedy gave a lifetime offer. He said, Nehru, I love Indian democracy. I've got information that the Chinese are going to burst test an atom bomb. I'll give you all the know-how. Do it first. India did not do it. Otherwise, we won't have had the 62 and 65 wars. China would have been damn scared of us. But that was not so. The Indian generals also did an exercise in 61, Operation Kilabandi. General Thorat had told them the roots of hindrances and way to fight. But Nehru and Menon wanted a forward, posturing. He wanted isolated posts, just like police posts. And he did not want any reserves. Nearly 60 to 70 posts were made. And this forward post were sitting ducks. The report also said that China will never be able to sustain anything in winters when the things are blocked. And the Indian Air Force or the Air Force can really give them lasting punches and push them out. But India refused to hit them, refused to use the Air Force. It had 18 squadrons and it had number of airfields, both in northeast and in the central plains of India, within reach. Whereas the Chinese had nothing. They would have had great difficulty. So what I was trying to tell you was that the Indian Army and the officers have seen the First and Second World War. They have fought it to the hilt. They fought the Pakistanis in 47 till 50, and they were, always on the toes. Only problem was arming of them, and that Nehru did not do. That is where China was able to inflict casualties. But then that was passed back. China would have lost that war. Certainly it would have lost the war. They would have gone rolling back because they did not have good officers, battle-trained officers. Because most of them and their families and children were from KMT, the General Chiang Sheikh's army. And Mao saw to them that they were all slaughtered. And what he had on the battlefront were communist leaders dressed in khakis, Chinese dresses. I'm telling you, we would have given up bloody nose, but we left them. Gentlemen, by now you must have realized that the Chinese army and defense forces are just paper tigers. I repeat, paper tigers. They are China's Achilles' heel. India has ripped open the secret. Now it is left to the world to teach China a lesson. Well, our friend President Jimmy Carter had said that China has not fought any war since 1979. And the world superpower in about last 250 years has seen peace only for 16 years. Just imagine, seen peace for 16 years. So goes the Russian army. They have fought the Battle of Stalingrad and Leningrad. And they've taught the Germans a bloody lesson. So therefore, China must cool down. I'll say, the way Chinese say that, their territory, the areas from Ming Dynasty and earlier, then Britain, where the sun never set, they captured half the world. But as they are occupying it, they had left. If they had also published those maps and said, we want to hold on here, then they would have become another China. So China must disintegrate. Now let us see the chinks in the Chinese armed forces. General He Li had said on retirement that the only regret he had serving with this great Chinese army was that he never fought in war. What a pity. That means down the line, no one has fought a war since 1979. Let's take the 1969 Chinese and the Russians had clashed on the Ussuri River and on those islands. China thought that it will get it will get its land back. But the Russians hit them real hard, and they realized what Russia is. They never again came back. They lost over 1,000 people, Chinese, and they ran off for negotiations. So that was against Russia. Now come to Vietnam. 1979. That's the last war they fought. You know, this Chinese army in thousands had tried to help Cambodia. And then they tried to take on Vietnam, you know, those jungles, those mountains, sweating. And the Vietnamese were poorly armed, but they were cool. They had the courage of a lurking tiger. When the waves of Chinese hulks entered the jungles, they were mowed down. They were killed in hundreds. Though China says about over 1,000 people were killed, but a rough estimate shows that more than 20,000 Chinese were massacred. China knew nothing about guerrilla warfare, insurgency. The only thing they could do is kill their own people in Tiananmen Square, or those Ulghurs or Tibetans who are without arms. The moment you pick up your weapon, they run. I'll give another example, and that's a global example. A Chinese contingent in UN in 2016 in Sudan at Chudam. You know, the rebel troops attacked the Chinese post. Just about 2 Chinese were killed. One of them was Corporal Lee. And the Chinese ran, leaving their weapons, leaving their ammunition, food, shelters, everything behind, and also refused to protect the poor civilians. For 4 days, these rebel troops rampaged the areas around. The hell was let loose. The women were raped. Hundreds of civilians were killed. And China and Chinese troops sat from a distance seeing all this. When the UN ordered an inquiry, they gave very strong, stringent remarks against Chinese troops abandoning their post. So this is what China is all about. Gentlemen, it might be sounding a little uppish, but then I find a very big resemblance of, let's say, Mao, and then now President Xi Jinping with Führer Hitler. You know that photograph world over of Jinping going on the jeep and with all those mics had the same gleam as Hitler had. These people, all these 3 leaders, believed in genocides. They killed millions. Rough estimate, China, 20 to 40 millions were killed. Now, the Germans, Hitler, genocide of Jews, Polish people, the genocide in Tibet, and the Ulghurs, reminds you that these people were not only power hungry, but they had their hands soaked in people's blood. All the 3 leaders loved expansionism. They expanded their territories. one in Europe, and when he tried to come to Stalingrad, he got a shock of his life. And Leningrad, and they went reeling back. Similarly, the present Chinese army, it fought no war. It's got its hands in people's blood. And Hitler rose from a lance corporal. That means from an ordinary level. And he became the army commander or the chief of the German forces. No. President Jinping was a PA to a defense minister. Now imagine somewhere both Hitler and the president, she lacked the eye for strategy, lacked the eye for details, and both believe in human rights abuses. So let me end there. The others can get on with it. There are three friendly nations of China, and they all got their hands on people's neck. They have all slaughtered their own people. They don't have guts to touch the other nations. One is Pakistan, the breeding home of terrorism. When more than 3,000 bodies were lying in India, the Pakistanis refused to pick up their own soldiers. That is what they care for, their soldiers. Now, the next is Chinese friend, North Korea. Now you can imagine what sort of people Chinese will now look forward to walk with, because the rest of the world will ask for answers, will ask especially President Xi Jinping to take the responsibility of the Chinese virus, which is rampaging the world. Lakhs have died. Millions look forward to at least staying alive. But then, like always, the Chinese had covered up the Wuhan virus, and the Germany has already asked for $1 trillion. I think by the time America and India and all these countries put their demands, China will either have to pay up or face hostile nations fighting for the people's right. I foresee Dalai Lama, 85 years old, a man of peace, now going back with his at least 10,000 people to his palace in Lhasa. I don't think Chinese will trouble him now. But then the Tibetans will have to decide that they have to go back and take back their land. So the others, mind you, word about Stalin. After the war, Stalin was not with China, Second World War. He wanted the Mongolians, the Manchurians, the Xinjiangs, Ulghurs, all these people to have freedom. Or he actually backed the freedom movement. But then he died very early in 1953. And it was this part of the world left to Mao and Chow and Lai to murder and occupy. Well, I've come to the end, but let me tell you, China has destroyed the roof of the earth, but will it ever destroy the entire building? It is for the world nation to decide. Either to check China's and see that it gives independence to all that area which it has illegally held for killing lakhs of or millions of people and enslaving them, China will have to pay a heavy price. In my next edition of the video, I'm sure you'll be looking forward to it. It's going to be real hot. India's fight back. India's fight back since 62. Well, gentlemen, I've come to the end of today's topic. I'm sure you'll follow me because the next is going to be man-to-man battle. Yes, it's going to be Nasrullah, Doklam, eye to eye, and then Colonel Babur's Galwan Heights in Ladakh. See you. Good day. Thank you. Jai Hind.